Hello, everyone. This is Hank Birdsong back with Jason Spangler with the next episode. This is episode 8 of Cloth Talk 2.0. This one is about building up trading stock without going broke. So I'll start off by just passing it over to you, Jason, and you give us an idea. How do you build up your trading stock without busting your budget?
Thanks, Hank. I think one example I want to give is that, every one of us is in a council, some of us are in lodges, and you have a unique buying opportunity there that not everyone else has. My example I want to give is going to my lodge store. I have a really small, belong to a small lodge, and our lodge flaps have typically been restricted, although we have special issues that we can buy sometimes in unlimited quantity. And here's my tip. My tip is you need to try to buy bulk quantities of good patches that you can use to trade whenever you have a good buying opportunity. Let me give you an example. At my last fellowship I just got back from, I purchased a brick, and I call it a brick. There's 25 flaps in there, and this is our 100th anniversary flap. So it's got a lot going for it. It's Santee Lodge, small lodge, 100th anniversary flap. It's got the logo on it. So trading-wise, this should be a pretty good patch that a lot of people would be interested in trading for. The key thing is, when this patch came out in my lodge, for whatever reason, they wanted to sell for $5. And so it had been $5 ever since 2010. And as I've gone into the lodge store and kind of watched and watched, finally, the price came down to $3 a piece. And that was, for me, the magic number in terms of buying something that I could trade, was I feel like I can't pay more than $3 a piece for it. So I spent $75. I got 25 of the same flap, but when I go to my next big OA event, I can set these out and I can do a lot of one-for-one trading. Let me give you one more example, Hank, before I throw it back over to you. Similarly, after the 2014 conclave, I had an email, and a couple of other people got emails from Clahican Lodge, from the lodge advisor who was in charge of that stuff, and they had gotten stuck with a bunch of leftover patches, and they wanted to clear their books and be done with them. So I was able to purchase this version of the 2014 Conclave patch, just a bunch of them, and I was able to pay a really discounted price because I was buying a lot of them at one time. So again, same sort of thing. This is a good, legitimate patch. It's got all the good scout stuff, on the back and everything, and I got it at a good price. And so my sort of tip for you is you have to look out for buying opportunities where you can buy trading stock in bulk at a good price, and you got to buy stuff that you think you can then trade. So you kind of have to develop that on your own. Hank, I want to throw it back to you and let you share a similar story with us.
Sure. Well, very similar to yours. Our lodge, we're a small lodge, but sometimes we overbuy. And at the 2006 NOAC, you might recognize this. The lodge just had a ton left over, and so early on, I went ahead and got a bunch, and now they're not there anymore. And I've actually sort of put them in a drawer, and they hadn't been available for a couple of years now. And new folks to the lodge, they're just starting to collect. I've got something that I can trade one-on-one with them that was pretty inexpensive. Going down the real inexpensive route, I went by the scout office one day, and they had it was, I think, this patch, maybe a couple others, but this is from our the 50th anniversary of Camp Daniel Boone. They had a whole set, some leathers, and then several different things: camporee, training, summer camp, Rotary Scout Show, all sorts of stuff. But they had a box of these things that they hadn't sold one in 10 years. It was just sitting there in that box. And I asked how much they were, and they said, well, 50 cents each. And I said, well, how about I buy them all for 25 cents each? And they couldn't say yes fast enough because they'd just been looking at them for all these years. And since then, I was able to start this collection. It's something that I can trade. I mean, I paid 25 cents a piece for them. I'll trade for anything. I don't care. And at the same time, some of them are actually a little tough to find now, and are actually worth a little bit. So just go by your local scout office. Just ask them if they have anything back in the depths that they've had forever and hadn't been able to get rid of, and you'll be amazed what they might pull out. What you got?
I just want to mention too. That's even I wouldn't even call that a beginner strategy because I know professional dealers in this hobby that make it a habit of stopping at scout shops as they travel around, and they ask that exact same question, and they attempt to buy, the FOS patch from 5 years ago that's just sitting back there behind the box. They attempt to buy whatever's left of that. That's really sort of an advanced strategy, but it can definitely work. I want to talk a little bit more about this idea of one-for-one trading. Just share a story from the 2012 North Carolina conclave, and I remember this because it kind of just made an impression on me. I had a notebook full of patches that I knew were just one-for-one trading patches, and all I was trying to trade for was any patch from North Carolina, any OA flap, didn't matter what lodge. And as I had scouts coming up and trading with me, really I wasn't picky. I knew what I had in it. I knew these were my one-for-one traders, and I was just making trades, shaking hands the whole time. And I had an adult come up to me, and he said, I've been watching you from a distance for a little while, and he actually thanked me and said that I was being real easy to trade with these kids, and he had noticed some of the other adults under the tarp there, the little shelter. They weren't. They were being very picky. If the boy didn't have exactly what they were looking for, they wouldn't trade for him. And so I think when it comes to trading patches, the way that we really set the hook in the mouth, of a young scout is to get him trading. And so you have to have a good trading stock in order to be able to do that. Hank, why don't you wrap it up for us for this episode?
Okay, sure. Yeah, and I totally agree with that. It's having some patches that you can trade one for one, and it doesn't matter, is a great strategy. At every Dixie Fellowship, and just for those, if you're in a section that doesn't allow adults to trade with kids, in Dixie, it's fine, and people don't abuse it, so it continues to be fine. But I've put out just a whole set. I mean, just a bunch of the just trader flaps, like you were saying, and it's stuff that I picked up one for one. And anybody comes up, they say, well, what do you got to trade? And I say, for this, and they'll have a flap, and I say, any of these flaps right here, I'll trade. I've even left a couple younger scouts that weren't trading, but they were interested in what was going on. I've let them sort of tend the store where they sat at the table, and they knew that they could trade any of these patches for any other, while I went around and probably talked to you or somebody else at the same area. But it's fun for them. It really gets them interested, and I can't think of anything more boring than to sit down with some valuable patches and everybody that comes by say, no, you don't have anything I can trade. That would just be boring, and it's not gonna. And people aren't gonna. They're not gonna want to come up and even talk to you if you're hard to trade with. So that's a great idea. Get these. Go out and find these cheap patches like we talked about. Get started, and pretty soon you'll have a big stack of cheap patches that you can trade with anybody. It's a lot of fun. That's it. We'll be back with Cloth Talk number 8, or no, this was 8. We'll come back to Cloth Talk number 9 shortly. Take care.